Blog Talk Radio.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to this episode of The Period Party. I am here with Nat and a special guest. Her name is Willow Buckley. Hi, ladies.
Hi.
Hello.
Hi. Okay, so on this episode, we are talking about homeopathy for pregnancy and why every birth needs a doula. I love this topic very much. And just so everyone knows, Willow first combined her holistic interests with her medical science studies while earning a Bachelor of Science in neuropsychology from the University of California. Continuing her search and passion for a whole healing approach, as we all are, she ventured into homeopathy where she experienced her own healing. After years of chronic sinus issues, she was able to strengthen her system, alleviate a lot of mental stress, and become a fervent proponent of the body's power to heal itself, and infuses nutrition with real food into her practice. Amen, sister. So on this episode, we're talking all about homeopathy for pregnancy, as well as Willow's top 5 remedies to have on hand in pregnancy, what a qualified doula actually does and how to find one, and then we'll move into the benefits of having a doula, like lowering the chance of cesareans by almost 30%. And finally, we will talk about placenta encapsulation. I have a million questions about that, by the way.
Me
I can't
too.
wait
Everyone
to talk about
always
it.
does.
Awesome. Where should we start, ladies? By the way, why don't we start with where everyone is right now? Willow, I'm not entirely sure where you are. And Nat, I want to know where you're at and like what that lady at the pool said to you yesterday.
Well, I'm on holidays. I'm in Hawaii. I'm in Waikiki Beach, and yesterday I happened to be sitting at the pool, and someone came up to me and said, "I love your accent. You sound like a rabbit." So, I think it's a compliment. I'm not sure. It was like, what's a rabbit sound like? I don't know. I think of rabbits as being like a. Anyway.
You just never know what you're going to
get. Where are you located? You don't sound like a rabbit, by the way, Willow.
No. Sadly, I like the sound of an Australian accent, so I wish I had it. I'm in San Diego, California, so down in Southern California.
Awesome.
Amazing. I have to get to San Diego. I always hear such great things about it.
It is.
I just have to get to America.
Place.
I have to just move beyond Hawaii. I seem to keep coming back here.
Yeah, girl, you need to just bust through that block and just get here already. I know. We'll get you here one of these
days. So close yet so far.
Yeah, right. Tell me about it.
Well, you keep stopping in a pretty nice area, so
that's
why you
just
keep landing there.
I can't stop. It's like an addiction. Anyway, we should talk about homeopathy.
I know, we should talk about pregnancies and things like that. And okay, so Willow, let's talk about this. I mean, I know little bits here and there about homeopathy, but I would love to hear your take on it, and especially for pregnancy, because I don't know that I know anyone who practices homeopathy with pregnancy or uses the two together.
Yeah, it's such a fantastic medicine to use while you're pregnant. Even before pregnant, it can help with so many issues around fertility and also just strengthening the system in preparation for conceiving and having a baby. So really, homeopathy, most people don't realize that it's over 200 years old. It's actually a system of medicine. It uses natural substances from nature. And it's really there to alleviate and even cure the symptoms presented by the patient. So what is often confusing about homeopathy is that there's all these different remedies and everyone has so many different symptoms, but really most of the remedies can cover a lot of different symptoms. We don't just take the umbrella of symptoms and say, this one remedy is it. It's the only one you can use for this symptom. It really takes the individual into account, and so we really are looking at a holistic approach of healing with homeopathy. We want the mental and emotional sphere as well as the physical symptoms to be incorporated when treating even a symptom like hemorrhoids. We would still take sometimes into the mental emotional sphere because certain remedies for hemorrhoids are also going to have a specific mental emotional marker that might lead you to the best choice remedy. So it's got a principle of like cures like, and that means that a substance in nature that induces symptoms in a healthy person, that same substance will cure those symptoms in a sick person that is presenting those same symptoms. Sounds kind of funny the way it's presented, but you can just think of the onion, Allium cepa. It's a great remedy for hay fever, and just like when you are cutting that onion, you've ever gotten the burning eyes, the running nose, it's kind of like a hay fever symptom. So you look at that natural substance inducing symptoms in someone who has hay fever with those similar symptoms, that onion in homeopathic remedy is going to be a great choice for them to help alleviate all the symptoms.
Yeah, I love that. And as I mean, my background being Chinese medicine, it's very similar. And as in, a certain substance will, you might use it for hemorrhoids and you might use it for a headache. It doesn't mean the person with headache has hemorrhoids.
Exactly. It's not limited. You don't have to have all the symptoms that remedy can cure or help alleviate, but you want to have the majority of your symptoms covered by that remedy.
Yeah, exactly. I find it really hilarious when you give a male patient a patent substance, a patent formula or whatever, and they look at the side of it and they're like, so sorry, this treats PMS and menstrual pain. I'm like, yeah, dude, you so need it. You so need it.
It's so true. Oh, my gosh. Because the FDA, they often make you put, or they do, the companies, the pharmacies, they make you put what it could be used for. It has to be labeled with something. So when you tell someone to go get it inside the health food store, and then they look at it and it's like constipation, and it's like, no, that's for your grief that you're getting over, or whatever, your headache, exactly that. So like, oh my gosh.
It's why often natural medicines get a bad rep. It's because people don't actually at all understand what they're utilising, and really that's not their fault. It's just the way that we've been conditioned to understand our body and the way that medicine, in inverted commas, works. And when you can start to open up to the possibilities of how all of these different modalities work, it can be mind-blowing for a lot of people. I remember when I was first learning Chinese medicine, and my background was science, and it was almost like I had to unlearn everything that I'd learned because nothing made sense anymore, yet the results were there. And I'm sure you get that a lot too, that the results are outstanding with your patients. You cannot ever you can't question it because it works.
No. It's so true, because I came from an engineer background and then switched to biopsychology or neuropsych and then found holistic medicine. And it was a relearning, but it was almost like it was magic because it didn't fall within that empirical evidence that we always were used to in terms of research and quantifying in the more Western chosen sciences. So, it really is. And for so many people, too, it's mind-blowing just to remove the compartmentalization of health. We compartmentalize so much of it, and we have to look at the whole thing as a symbiotic relationship with not just one organ to another organ, but our mental, emotional to our organs and the rest of our functioning.
Totally. So then,
my goodness. Yeah.
Sorry to hijack the conversation, but, do you then get a lot of resistance for using these substances in the situation of pregnancy? Because my background is similar to yours, fertility and women's health and pregnancy. And, it's taken many years for me to gain that respect in the industry to be able to utilise these substances. It's not such an issue anymore, but I remember, when I first started out, it was a massive issue. People were like, no, and especially gynecologists and doctors and IVF specialists like, do not do that. And, we've kind of made friends since then, but you get that same resistance?
It really depends, of course, as you know, on the OB or on the practice and also on the patient. I mean, a lot of the patients, they're more comfortable taking some kind of, crappy over-the-counter on a daily basis while they're pregnant than taking a holistic approach with homeopathy or acupuncture or Chinese medicine or something else. So it really depends on the individual, and the best thing to do is educate, because I think in terms of everything, when you're looking at herbology, you want somebody who's qualified, because there's some things you don't want to use during pregnancy. And the same thing with homeopathy. There's certain ways of dosing that you want to follow. And you don't want to be flippant about your, it's still a medicine, but it's so much safer and more effective and it promotes the immune function, and it promotes the healing, and it promotes overall wellness instead of masks it or covers it up or attacks it. So I just want everyone to understand that when you're looking at modalities for healing, whether it's simple things like, acid reflux or heartburn, which can be quite debilitating depending on their intensity, or as intense as threatening miscarriage, homeopathy is there, and it works, and it can help with all of those ailments or symptoms that either are acquired from being pregnant or just happen while you're pregnant, such as the flu or the cold or whatever kind of regular thing might be floating around that you happen to contract. So that's what I love to empower and explain to practitioners and also to patients. And they love it once they realize how effective and how safe it is.
Yeah, that's awesome. So what are then some of your top remedies we said that we were going to mention that you might recommend for your patients during pregnancy? What are the ones they need to have?
Yeah, I like to say this top 5 just because you can go out, they're roughly $7 a tube or $7 per remedy. So for like $35, you can kind of get some basics. My ideal is you can go and buy a kit. I actually have 20% off on my website for the basic kit that I think every home should have. But if you're just going to start dabbing while you're pregnant, pulsatilla, sepia, arnica, aconite, and nux vomica are kind of going to be a well-rounded to help cover whether it's an emotional upset, like you got in a car accident, or something happened that seemed kind of tragic, or you got some bad news. Arnica for just aches and pains. Sepia and pulsatilla are wonderful for morning sickness, hemorrhoids, constipation, emotional hormonal imbalances or changes. And then nux vomica, another one, great for acid reflux and heartburn, great for constipation, great for morning sickness, for so many things. So these 5, pulsatilla, sepia, arnica, aconite, and nux vomica, can take you quite far with a combination of ailments.
Have you used them before, Nicole, for anything?
Have I used them when?
Me?
Yeah. Nicole, have you used?
Me? No, I actually haven't. I've been to a homeopathic doctor a couple of times. I've been to 2 different ones for different things, obviously not pregnancy. And it's been a fascinating experience, and I've not continued it, and I've needed to, but I sort of stopped halfway through, and just because I was traveling and doing different things. But I had some really strong responses to the homeopathic medicine that I was given. So I'm really curious about it because I feel like, Willow, I don't know, I know you kind of touched on this a little bit, but I feel like when you said that people would rather take a prescription drug during pregnancy than something that you're potentially offering. And I'm seeing that with someone I know who's pregnant who's on aspirin every day, which is freaking me out. But she's been told to do that. I know. You know how it is with friends,
it's really
right?
Common.
It's so common, and
there's a boundary. When do you put on your health hat and when do you put on your friend's hat? There's definitely that balance. But it really is true. There's something so familiar with what your doctor says, and sometimes the doctors just aren't familiar with it. Midwives are a little bit more familiar, and then the type of treatment you likely were gaining from your homeopath was constitutional treatment, which is great for women before pregnancy because you're really finding that remedy that is optimal for you. And the ones I'm speaking about are for acute situations. So there's something that come about. It might be something that can help you as a constitutional remedy, but really we're looking at this is happening right now. It's not something you've suffered with for a long time. It's not something that's on necessarily a deeper level. It's an acute situation. So these are things that you can treat at home yourself or with a qualified homeopath, which I am still taking patients via Skype all over the world for pregnancy and everything else for that reason. So it's really great for acute to have access to somebody who can treat them at any time. And the great thing about having remedies at home is because when do ailments usually happen? It's like having kids. They get sick at 3 a.m. on a Saturday. They're not sick 9 to 5 Monday through Friday. And same thing with pregnancy. Your morning sickness might start at 6 a.m. and you have no one to call.
Yeah. You know, that's true. I have a homeopathic first aid kit, and we sell them in the clinic. And it is, seriously, it's my go-to. Like, if the kids are sick, if they've got fever, if they're vomiting, it's so good. Like, and safe and easy to use and effective. Yeah. And I remember the first time I used, I had a teething formula, a homeopathic teething formula. Yeah. This sucks, man. This doesn't work, because I didn't follow the directions on the side of it. This is like, my daughter's 8, so this is a really long time ago. I was like, this is crap. And then I thought, I don't know why, I persevered, and I actually followed the instructions on the box. It was brilliant.
It's so true. Sometimes it really is just dealing with a change of dosage. Sometimes you need a loading dose. Take it every 15 minutes, then every 30 minutes, then every couple hours. And sometimes it just takes one dose. It's unfortunately not a perfect map in terms of dosage. So you do have to kind of play with that, or that's when it helps with someone who's had the experience. Oh, this is really helpful. When you have intense nausea and morning sickness, you want to take that remedy every 15 minutes. That's great. And if it's just kind of mild, you can take it just 3 times a day. Yeah,
perfect. So, Willow, you're a doula as well.
Yes.
Tell us. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I so wish I had a doula with my kids. After having my first, my husband I think he just stood there in the corner with his mouth wide open for about 16 hours. He had no idea what to do. He stood there holding the camera as I was in my second stage of labour, holding the camera I pushed for 3 hours. He stood there for 3 hours holding it. And he said to me at one point, I should have realised when I actually went and got the aprons that was a signal that probably that was when things were going to start happening. And I think I still pushed for another hour after that, the poor guy. Anyway, he was completely useless, though, I have to say. And I said that to him the second time around. I said, babe, I love you, but you really sucked balls during that labour. I was on my own. I was on my own with 2 midwives that I didn't know. And, I think if I had my time again, I certainly wouldn't have advocated for him. He'd not done it before. He didn't know. He doesn't have any idea about what happens down there.
And absolutely. If you do have even if you do have a partner who is ready and studying and doing birth classes and just totally your number one support, doula is still amazing to have, because doulas support the whole family, everyone involved. They support the husband. I mean, because it is their first time and they're having their own experience as well while they're trying to support their wife or partner. It's really a wonderful, continuous way to have that sacred experience. So what I really love to explain for a doula is you have the what and the how of labor and birth. And you can define the what happened as the facts, like, it started at this time, the water broke, I got this, it happened then, and blah, 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 blah. And we have no idea what's going to happen. No idea. Because we've never done it. Every baby's different. But how you experience the labor and birth is something we can have a little bit of not even control, but support with, to have a sacred experience, to have an experience that is going to feel empowered, graceful, without fear, without feeling judged, and added all that connection. So with the doula, what you're really doing is you're getting that continuous support that provides that sacred experience, how you're going to experience it. Because what happens, we're not exactly sure exactly what is going to happen, but how the mom experiences it is extremely important.
And I think women have been coming together to birth for, ever. I don't really think that it was a group of males that stood around her rooting for her to get the baby out. Like, do you know what I mean? It doesn't make any sense at all. Yeah. I think forever it's been a situation where women would be together, and I don't mind housekeeping. And that, we've come away from something that's so normal and made it so medical, and it's really sad.
Yeah, and I think that's exactly right. So men also, if you want to look at it in terms of their natural drive is to fix things. They're very Mars-oriented, and when they see their partner in in an intense experience, they are having their own experience and often want to fix it and don't know how. And so a doula can help show them, number one, relieve any stress that's in the room, because doulas are very good at kind of coming in and quelling any of that anxiety or fear that is not even really vocalized, it's just felt. And we're great at helping dads to understand that it's not something to fix, that it's something to support and guide and just be there. It's sometimes a partner's role is as easy as just standing right next to her or holding her hand, and that's it. And the doula can do the rest. I kind of look at us as the production assistant of the whole thing, or the busser of the experience of the restaurant. You know, we're doing all these things and no one really knows exactly what we're doing. But we're creating that experience so that every step of the way, mom can stay in labor land. She can stay connected. She can stay in her body. And through that, labor is going to be faster. There's going to be less intervention. And with all that, up to a 30%, it's around 28% less chance of having a cesarean. I always say, we're going to go all over the internet to save 20% for a pair of shoes, right? We better go around and search for providers and a doula to save an extra 20% on having a cesarean. That's not medically necessary. They're medically necessary.
Yeah. I did that too with acupuncture. I'm like, this will lessen your labor by up to 40%, apparently. I don't know where that comes from, but it's up to. It's like shopping. Save up to 40%. Yeah, totally. But I think what's interesting is that, you know, when you're in that zone of labor, it's so true what you say, stay connected to that. It's very hard when you're having, you know, I felt like I was almost having to support my husband at the same time. So I was kind of like in and out of this state where I was having to look after him and worry about myself. And look, granted, I mean, it was your first time, It was your first time, and I didn't know what the heck I was doing, and he didn't know what he was doing. But I still just think this is why we need to look at how we can come together and utilise resources like a doula and really benefit from that and you know, experience everything that it should be.
Right. And with your birth, the hired practice, whether it's the nurses that are at the hospital or your midwives or whoever the OB or whoever you've hired for your care provider, they're not always there. Number one, nurses have shifts, so you're not going to always have the same nurse, and one may energetically feel better or even literally treat you better than the next, and vice versa. And sometimes OBs practice in a large practice, in a group, and you're not necessarily going to get the one you've been seeing your whole pregnancy. So a doula, we all provide different services. Mine entails also homeopathy, also nutrition, also lifestyle, and prenatal yoga. So we all have our own little extras as well, but we're also there throughout your pregnancy. So we're there along the way, and then we're also your constant throughout labor and delivery, where a lot of your healthcare providers may not be.
I don't know. I was present. I haven't given birth yet, but I was present for my best friend's labor and delivery last year, and her doula was so incredible. I mean, she was like the glue that held everything together. We were all just like,
wonderful way to put it.
Right?
It's a wonderful.
I kind of thought that. Yeah, she was great. I mean, she was like the voice of reason in all the madness, essentially.
But that's what happens because you. Sorry to cut you off, but you kind of enter this state where you're not sane. So it's like having someone that is sane next to you kind of really helps.
And but it does. Someone who's witnessed it, so they know that usually around transition, fear ensues, or I can't do it, or something. And for someone to be able to say you're right where you should be, this is exact labor land. Yes, it's all.
I still wanted to punch her when she said that. Sorry, it's so noisy in here. But you know what she said to me, because I have what's called an irritable uterus. So I had contractions from 20 weeks with both children. And so my uterus was so tired by the time I was giving birth. I couldn't feel the contractions anymore. They were telling me when I was having them and when it was time to push, because I think that happens anyway. But I was so fatigued. And I had pre-labor for about a week. So I'd been in and out of labor. I'd been in hospital 3 times. Like it was, you know, it was just stop, start. Anyway, so I hadn't eaten for so long, and I'm pushing, and at one point I remember I turned around, I'm like, I'm hungry. I'm actually hungry, and I turned to her and I said, I think we just need to stop. I need a sandwich. And she said,
and did
no,
she let you?
No. So then she said, no, sweetheart, you're about to have your baby. And I said, I can't feel anything. I'm just hungry. And she said, your uterus is doing 60% of the work. And I turned around and I said, it's not working then, is it? I was like, well,
and you know what?
It's not working. I just want a sandwich. And apparently they were all laughing because I just kept asking for a sandwich.
Yeah, and that's another thing too. As doulas, we really can help with pre-labor to minimize those trips to the hospital, so that you're not burning yourself out before active labor is actually beginning. I mean, the first thing I say usually when I get a call in the middle of the night is go back to sleep. Call me if you can't.
Totally. You know
really
that I did that. I have to say, I stayed home for the first 2 nights. The third night I ended up in there because they told me to come in, and they're like, you're having your baby tonight. I'm like, awesome, because I'm over this after 3 nights. And then my contractions stopped at 10 o'clock the next morning. So they were like 3 minutes apart.
Yeah.
And then it was like, no, sorry, go home. I'm like, you're kidding me. Like, I've read Ina May's book, what's it called? Ina May's Guide to Childbirth, whatever. So great. Yeah. And it was so interesting because I had so much fear, though. Like, there was so much fear. So it was like when I was relaxed, my body would allow me to labour. And then the minute, I got conscious about what was happening, it was like everything just shut down again. And
yeah, of course.
It's bizarre the way your body works. Like, but I did. I had a lot of fear. I was so scared of pushing, and I ended up pushing forever because that was my fear. But there were so many reasons why having a doula would, have been, in hindsight. Anyway, she's 8 now. I've had another baby since, so I got to go where I needed to go with the second one.
Yeah, it's we have the experience we're supposed to have, right, for whatever lessons, but there's sometimes beforehand that I think there's so much work we can do to know that if we're in labor, we can sit back and say, hey, we did as much as we could, and this is still the experience that I'm supposed to have, that baby wants to have, and that has chosen to give me. It's also really birth.
Absolutely.
We can get ourselves out of it.
Yeah, totally. So can you tell us about, we're all burning to learn about placenta encapsulation. And I know I've had a lot of that utilize it, but I was just going to say, a lot of people. Yeah.
Yes.
I was just going to say, we only have a couple of minutes left, and I obviously want to honor everyone's time. Yeah, so I was going to say, by all means. I mean, I have some time, but I just want to make sure that, we honor your time, Willow. So go for it.
Oh, thank you.
Dying to know about this stuff.
So placenta encapsulation, our placenta is one of the most amazing organs because we're not born with it. It actually is grown when we're pregnant. So it's an incredible organ, in my opinion, just one of the most fascinating for sure. Within the placenta, when it is grown at some point, it takes over the hormone production and release during pregnancy. And the hypothalamus that normally would produce such hormones as testosterone and progesterone and everything else is going to go on hiatus. It's going to take a break because the placenta takes it over. And it regulates the rest of the hormones throughout pregnancy. Well, the research, unfortunately, it's minimal, that it shows is once that placenta has an immediate release after birth, the third stage of birth is actually delivering the placenta, then all of a sudden all that hormone production that it was taking care of is no longer present, and the hypothalamus has to pick that back up. So 2 things. 1, right before baby is born, it is triggered to the placenta to send about almost a third of its blood back to the placenta, so it's smaller when it comes out. And if you've heard of delayed cord camping, after baby comes out, that placenta gets triggered to pump that third of the blood back to baby, which is why delayed cord camping is so amazing and is becoming more and more popular and standard in most hospitals or OBGYN practices. So here we have the placenta, which is full of hormones, full of nutrients, and also full of healthy bacteria. It is not sterile like it once was thought. So it's amazing that we're sitting here and all of these vaginal swabs that people are doing post-cesareans, which is still great, it's actually found that that healthy microbiome within the placenta is the majority of what gets passed to baby. So another great thing about this organ. So once it's released, it kind of looks like a drop in progesterone because it's no longer there. And it was telling our body and kind of jetting out a ton of progesterone. So it's not that we get an estrogen increase, but because we had that sudden release of the progesterone from the placenta, some people can have symptoms like estrogen dominance, which is fatigue, emotional baby blues, a lot of different symptoms that kind of fit within that postpartum baby blues category. Now, that sometimes it's contributed to that middle ground of having the hypothalamus pick it back up and produce all those hormones. So when you ingest your placenta, you're giving yourself back all of that rich iron from the blood, which is great for fatigue, and all of those hormones which help balance you out while your body is going through that hormonal balance. So I love it. I hear from my own clients and from my whole community of encapsulators all over the nation the benefits, and my clients who are just can't get enough of it. Myself, who did it with both of my kids, and when I got mine much later with my second, my husband was making me smoothies with the raw pieces that she left me because he noticed a difference while I was waiting for my capsules versus the first pregnancy. And so he was doing it to me. And it's really just such a phenomenal thing. I look at it as like, why wouldn't you want to add to your postpartum healing? And why wouldn't you want to boost to your postpartum? It's not going to necessarily be the only factor. A good diet, omegas, different supplements. There's so many pieces. Creating a nurturing postpartum environment between family and setting yourself up for less stress is wonderful as well. And this is one major contribution to you physically that can really smooth out that transition. And so it's real easy to do once you find an encapsulator. Oh, yeah. It's real easy to take. They're capsules. You're not munching like National Geographic, Animal Planet, or anything.
I have some questions about this, actually. Yeah, I mean, I have a couple of questions because I've had a few things. The first is that women who I beg to do this and then end up not doing it for whatever reasons. First of all, they usually say something along the lines of, well, there isn't a lot of science behind this, and I just don't feel like there's substantial enough evidence to go out and spend whatever $300 and do this. And I'm just like, who cares about the evidence? I have so much anecdotal evidence. So I'm curious if you could speak to that, because that's a big thing for a lot of women who are more sort of in the conventional medicine, world.
So I look at it as it's like a supplement. If you take away whatever their personal ideas are around it, or the too hippie or too granola affiliation with something like that, then what you're really looking at is, why wouldn't I do something to add to that beautiful baby bliss postpartum? And second, we're mammals, and every mammal eats the placenta immediately after postpartum. Now, yes, we are a different type of mammal in terms of if you want to look at our consciousness and everything else, but that's another way to look at. If you look at the animalistic side of humans and birth, then you can really attribute, well, why don't we?
So because I'm sure that there's what's the word? Evidence of people doing this for like ever.
Right.
Like what's the first records of people, like humans, utilizing their placenta?
So I don't know how far back, but Chinese medicine, they use it as part of their apothecary, and they use it also in other tribes in South America, where it's for men, would use it for prostate issues that would come from a placenta from a baby boy, and females for either menopausal or other hormonal issues that came from a placenta from a baby girl. Now, when it's your own placenta, it doesn't matter whether you're having a boy or a girl, but they've used it as their apothecary for those types of hormonal issues from any placenta, and it's been part of it. And there are small studies that show increase in milk production, decrease in baby blues, and increase in energy. They're just not large studies because if anyone in the scientific world knows, studies cost a lot of money. And so there's just not a lot of funding to create it. I think more and more you're going to see a lot of those changes, but the hardest thing I find with pregnancy studies and research studies is to find a common balance of subjects. So many women have different diets. So many women have different backgrounds emotionally and mentally, and so many women have different predispositions for whether it's depression, anxiety, et cetera. So to really find a huge sample set that's going to have healthy women, they're all going to have somewhat the similar range of starting base to see how it affects them postpartum. It might take a while. But all I know is anecdotally and from the women that, like I said, you can go on many forums. You can talk to anyone. I have clients, they call it, magic. It's this, it's that. It's what's getting them through the most beautiful time of their life with their brand new baby.
I love that.
Amazing.
Hey, I'm going to make a massive call. This is one of my most favorite episodes.
Seriously, I know. I'm thoroughly enjoying this.
And babies all day. Yeah.
Well,
it's awesome.
I really enjoy talking with you ladies. I could see how we could probably continue to talk all day.
Well, we can always have you back, Willow. Before
Absolutely.
We wrap up, Willow, do you have anything else that you want to say to our listeners that you think is really important?
I want to say to all pregnant women, it takes a village. Don't isolate yourself, and know that by refusing help, you're not being a super mom. Super moms invite, ask, and accept help from their village, and they create it. Don't be on that island. It really does take a village, and it feels so much better with a village.
And a village for a lifetime,
beautiful.
Like forever. You're allowed to keep on calling and calling. It's not like you're using up credits. It's like it's never-ending, that never-ending account.
Right. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I love that. Well, Willow, thank you so much for joining us today. Like I said, I've thoroughly enjoyed it. I know Nicole has. We're both kind of just sat here in silence listening to everything that all your goodness that you've got on offer to everybody. Do you want to let our listeners know before we go where they can find you?
Yes, you can find me at balancingyourhealth.com. And our book with Krista, who you interviewed last week, at howtoconceivenaturally.com. And I am still taking clients and patients. So my practice is active if anyone is looking to add homeopathy to their experience for pregnancy or postpartum and birth.
I love that. I'd encourage any woman, whether they're pre-conception, conception, pregnancy, whatever, just, tap into all that goodness, because there's so much on offer and there's so much that we don't know about as well. So, being able to call on professionals that can help us, because sometimes we can't see very often, most often, we can't see ourselves what we need. So, Willow, thank you so much for joining us today. It's been such a pleasure to talk to you. We'll be back next time, won't we, Nicole? Yes, we'll be back again.
Yes, we will.
Goodness at the period party. But until then, take care. See you, everyone.
Thanks,
Bye.
ladies. Bye.
Bye. Bye.